1 week season.
Guys, today StatATL is going to build a Lamar Jackson skinny stack. We do not know if he is back yet as you're watching this on Thursday morning. No news yet as to whether he'll play or not. Probably be a game time decision, but we're going to be building as if he is in, and StatATL is going to show us how limitless upside for Lamar Jackson at the price he's at. So I hope he does play here today. Guys, this is the DFS Lab presented by 1 week season, and we are ready to get into week 8 and build a lineup. Guys, if you would not mind, if you could give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, we would love that. And with that, he's StatATL. Stat, how you doing?
Jeez, what's going on, man? Happy hump day.
Yes. Happy hump day indeed. That's right, because we're recording Wednesday night. This is a Wednesday.
Buddy, it's nice.
Wednesday
I feel
night.
like half the time we record on Tuesday, so it's nice to have a little bit more information than usual this week.
That's right, man. Let's go. Yeah. How was week 7? Any big hits for you?
Week seven was good for me. I did a few more lineups than usual. I think I usually do about a dozen. It was a little bit more than that this week. I think I had 4 out of like the 20 that were over 200 points. But my biggest annoyance was that I think I had one that ended with like 197, but took a 0 from Luke McCaffrey. So I don't mind a 0 sometimes. Not that you ever like.
What
a 0,
lineup was that?
like,
What stack was it? Or maybe it wasn't a stack.
It was a Bo
Nix?
Nix stack. Yeah, Bo Nix.
Yeah.
I only played 3. I try to get my core down to like 3 quarterbacks, 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and I think all of my Bo Nix lineups ended up over 200 points. So.
Yeah, man. I don't know what I think. I did not have a good defense. All my Bo Nix lineups had. I mean, I hate to say this. I think a lot of them had the Broncos defense, which I was kind of banking on, like a huge game from the Broncos, including like dominating the Giants, and their defense did not do that. So that was disappointing. But I had Bo Nix on like at least a third of my lineups. He was actually pretty highly on for me as well. But I think my highest that had him was like 185. So it was basically a more or less break-even week for me. But it sounds like you did pretty well. So that's great, man. Nice work. So let's pull up real quick. Were you done? Did I were you finished talking about last week?
There were no 5-figure hits for me last week, but then again, I don't play big dollars in general. So
hey, but that's what we're looking for, right? Is those 5-figure hits, because they can pay off the entire season. Here's a look at what one of the 2 lineups. We kind of actually built 3 lineups last week's show. And really quickly before I get to this, guys, the NBA props package has started. As you know, NBA season has begun, and the props package has been extremely good at 1 week season over the past 3 years, as you can see down below. So check it out. I know they a lot of times do run some early season promos, but just obviously, if you're into props, check it out with 1 week season. And with that, yeah, looking at this lineup last week, I mean, we talked about it a little bit before we came on air, but obviously, the Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson stack. Well, first of all, obviously Jaden Daniels getting hurt kind of capped the possibility of this lineup going anywhere. But then just kind of a good game to be on, but the wrong players to be on from that game with Jefferson and Saquon there.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden got hurt early, I think in the third quarter, still gave you about 20 points, was certainly, on pace to give you probably close to 30. You got a solid game out of Zach Ertz. Javonte Williams is kind of part of that build. I think gave you 20-something points as well. So, not a bad core to kind of build around. Can't predict injuries. And then, we spoke about the Vikings and Eagles game, and had a lot of correlations, mini stacks in my lineups around that game. And on this particular lineup, we kind of chose the 2 lowest scoring players of the skill position guys there. But yeah, I mean, if you had gone with Addison or Mason from Minneapolis, like you got a solid score, and then either Eagle wide receiver, I think they were both 25, 30 points as well. So again, just pretty directionally accurate. Didn't quite come together, on the roster we built on screen. I think Rashee Rice ended up being like one of the highest, if not the highest owned player last week. I think he gave you about 25 points. So, solid overall. But, again, for us, we're always trying to build winning lineups on stream. But in general, the thought behind these shows that we do every day, I know that you do them with a different contributor every day. It's just to kind of talk through the lineup building process and get people to kind of think through how they're building their rosters. So.
Yeah, exactly. With that correlation, even with Saquon Barkley at this point, I would assume, I would think that this weekend, well, we'll see. Actually, I shouldn't say he's going to be low owned just because it's hard to fit in those really expensive backs, as we'll find out here just in a moment. But he just has not done it yet this year. So if you're continuing to chase him, at some point you assume he's going to hit, and we just hope that's the week he does is at very low ownership. If he hits against someone like the Dolphins, if I don't even know if they play them, then people are going to be on that. So it's been a tough run if you've been chasing him. And once again, it was on Sunday, but still, you would assume that a blow-up game will come at some point, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things we said on air was something that I was an approach that I took last week that didn't change as the week went on was even though they weren't projected for super high team total, like I ended up with a rule of basically one of Quinshon Judkins or Harold Fannin on every build, and just like Barkley and Jefferson, we picked the wrong one on this build. Yeah. So Judkins I think had 3 touchdowns. So again, directionally accurate. We're not. I think one of the toughest things to do in daily fantasy is to try to predict where the touchdowns are going to come. Oh, yeah. I think in 1 week season we do a really good job of identifying the game environments or the offenses that are likely to have success, but then trying to nail down which player specifically is, not easy for anyone to do. So
yeah, it is. Yeah, extremely difficult. I agree. All right. Now let's kind of jump into DraftKings here and remove this. Add DraftKings. I'm going to jump back out of the lobby here for just a minute. We were kind of looking at. There's a $1,000 buy-in, a main event, mid-season main event, I think, this weekend. So if you're, got the bankroll for it, then that's like 5,000 field entry for 1 million to first. So that's pretty cool. There's some cool contests this week. Obviously from the low to high ends of the bankroll, there's always great options on DraftKings. But as I jump into a contest here, kind of do what we normally do, kind of begin to just look at kind of a high level look at the slate. And actually, I'm not very good at multitasking. So let me just find a contest real fast. You want to just jump into maybe the $12 fair catch?
That's perfect. Any of those are fine.
Awesome. So anyway, I've not done a ton of research on this slate yet, but I have started to look at a few things. Just a couple things I was noticing. There are some teams that some home teams that are huge favorites. One of them, for example, is the Colts at home against the Titans, and they're favored by, I think, 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns. Yeah, last I checked. And then Atlanta at home against the Dolphins, they're huge favorites. Obviously, you got like that Dallas-Denver game at the top, which is, certainly going to be a popular option. I think Chicago-Baltimore as well, especially if Lamar Jackson returns, which I already know we're going to build around that. But another spot I really do like this Atlanta offense at home. I don't think it'll be sneaky. People will be playing pieces from it, but can you play it in a way that is different from the field? Is there ways, certain stacks or player blocks potentially you could put together that could be advantageous? But I just like this Atlanta offense has been very good at home. So just, trying to get pieces of that. And then even just the Colts. Jonathan Taylor, probably people are going to want to find a way to play him, but what if the touchdowns end up coming through the air and Daniel Jones finally has just a blow-up game and they score like 5 touchdowns? So I think targeting teams at home that are big favorites is something that I like to do, and so that's something I'm going to be looking at for sure. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some really strong environments for running backs this week. Jonathan Taylor in a really great spot this week. Bijan Robinson in an awesome spot at home against Miami this week. The challenge with them, and I think Hilo hit on it on Tuesday when he did his show, is putting them both in a lineup together does make it a little bit challenging to build out the rest of your lineup. So I think it was one of the things we talked about. Is that something we want to do on air today? I know a lot of times we vote. I didn't put up a vote this week. It was busy work day today and yesterday, so we're just gonna have to shoot from the hip, and we're gonna go Baltimore today. We're not gonna give the viewers a choice this week, but we'll get back to that next week. But yeah, I mean, a couple of game environments I liked. I do, again, I like the Eagles and the Giants. I think you can build around that from either side.
Yeah.
And I like the passing attacks on both sides there. I think that's a really viable way to build this week. I like going back to Denver. I do think that's a great game environment. I think I'm more interested in the Bo Nix side. I don't mind going back to Baker Mayfield. I think you can easily bring that back with Olave or Shaheed or Juwan Johnson. I think that's intriguing. And then I think, Lamar and Mark Andrews, I think, is an interesting pairing, or Zay Flowers, interesting pairing. Or you could go Lamar and Derrick Henry, who's all the way down at like 6,000, like the cheapest I think he's been in multiple years, and just say, hey, I'm going to try to soak up all the touchdowns for Baltimore. I think that's an intriguing way to build. And then I think if you're wanting to punt at like quarterback, like you can go all the way down to like Andy Dalton and pair him with Ted McMillan. I think that's intriguing. Or you could, I mean, this one's kind of gross, but you could play the Jets. And that's super cheap this week as well, with Justin Fields getting benched. You're going to see Tyrod Taylor bleeding that offense. I think he's like 4,500. He's cheap, and you could go Garrett Wilson if he's back. You could go with a tight end correlation there, and be like really punting at that position. That's maybe an interesting approach. If you want to play the pay up running back options.
Yeah.
But I think for us today, let's go Lamar Jackson, and I probably want to pair him with Mark Andrews. I think that's an interesting approach to the game. Like, obviously, you could go Derrick Henry, as we talked about, cheapest he's been. But I think that like either Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews, really intriguing. Like, Chicago's surrendered like multiple massive games to wide receivers, as well as like 4 straight games of like strong scores to tight ends. Guys putting up 70, 80 yards, and you build in a touchdown into those. Mark Andrews hasn't had Lamar, I think, only the first 3 games, but you saw in week 3 against Detroit, gave you that 27-point upside at his price. Like, you don't need 27 points at 3,600. If you got 15 points from him, a 4 for 40 and a touchdown, like I'm not saying you're happy with that, but that's a solid score at his price. So I do like the upside that this pairing gives you. And I think generally when I like to build lineups, I think last week we didn't, but this week, like, I think you've got 2 viable kind of bring back options for Chicago. You could either go DeAndre Swift and fill a running back position, or you go Rome Odunze. I think those are probably the 2 best options. So let's go with the more expensive one on this and just kind of see how we shuffle out with salary. And if we need to make some swaps, then we'll make some swaps.
All right, so I got a Dunze in there with Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. Yeah, I love stacking that with Lamar Andrews. And again, the Ravens are 1-5, but they still have life in the division just because they're a ways down. Let's be real here. 3 games behind the Steelers, but it just feels like that division could be tight still. So Ravens have a long ways to go, but we'll see if they can get it rolling here. Okay, so we got our primary stack in there.
Yeah, and I mean, Lamar has just so much upside at 6,800. He's only played 3 games this season, but he topped 26 DraftKings points in all of them. He got hurt in the first half of week 4, so I'm kind of discounting him in that game. But yeah, you got if you get 26, 27 points out of him, kind of keeping him at that 4x salary score, you're certainly not upset with that. So I do like that start. I think for me, let's throw in Jonathan Taylor. I think
Let's do it, man.
to me, I think it's going to be hard for me to not include one of Jonathan Taylor or Bijan Robinson. I'm not going to say on every build, but I think on most builds, and again, it's still early in the week, but they're in such strong spots where we aren't trying to predict 2 or 3 touchdown games, although Jonathan Taylor already has 3 touchdown games this year. So for both of them, we've seen, I think both of them have 3. I guess Jonathan Taylor has 4 games over 30 points, and I think Bijan maybe 3 games over like 29 points or something like that. Like we've seen the ceiling out of both of them. They're both in great matchups at home. I think 14-point and 9-point favorites. So let's go ahead and pencil in Jonathan Taylor, and then I want to get some correlation with Indy here. And I think a pay down way to do this is probably to either go Iominor or Dike. And I think I'm happy to go Dike here. I think that's a little bit cheaper.
And on a
we kind of saw them look a little bit better on offense last week with new head coach. And I think this is an interesting approach to kind of say, okay, if Jonathan Taylor is having this massive game, Tennessee is playing from behind, they're throwing more. And I kind of like this correlation. Again, you don't need a big game to pay off this price. You could get there easily without a touchdown. Just, a 5 or 6 catch for 70, 80 yards gets you there even without a touchdown. So, I like this. I like kind of betting on maybe Tennessee continuing to improve as the season goes on with Cam Ward kind of improving most weeks. So I like this. It gives us a little bit of flexibility. I think we can throw in even a more expensive defense and kind of see where we land. On my first look, I always try to identify 1 or 2 of the pay-up defenses, 1 or 2 of the mid-tier defenses, and then 1 or 2 kind of cheap defenses that I like. I know a lot of times we just kind of throw in the mid-tier, which for me this week is probably the Texans at home. I do like the Texans or the 49ers, both. I don't mind the defenses on either side of that game. 49ers, I'm much more apt to play if Nico Collins misses with the concussion. But here, let's pay up, and we can always kind of punt down if we need to. And I think it's one of the top 2. It's either Colts or Patriots. Let's go Patriots. Give ourselves a little bit of flexibility. And then we've got we've got 3 spots left. Some decent salary on both. I think kind of mid-tier in the running back range. I do like Derrick Henry. I don't know that I want to build for Derrick Henry here with Lamar already and Mark Andrews. I would say that that's certainly viable, but you're basically saying Baltimore is going to score 5 touchdowns in that scenario, and you're going to get 3 passing from Lamar and 2 rushing from Henry, which is totally viable. And then at least one of the passing touchdowns from Lamar goes to Mark Andrews. That's certainly viable. Yeah. I don't think anyone would be surprised if the game ended up 35-28. I don't think that would be a surprise. So I could see you going that way. I don't mind DeAndre Swift. as we talked about, but we've already got Roma Dunze in this build.
Yeah.
So I think another interesting approach is to go Chase Brown. That offense, the Bengals offense looked as good as it's looked all season. I don't want to go Chuba.
Whoops. I thought it was Chase Brown. There we go.
He continues to see the opportunities, but he's getting more rush lanes now with Joe Flacco being competent and that offense looking better. Continuing to see work in the pass game. He had 4 targets again last week. We've seen him have, 8 targets just 2 weeks ago. I think this is a bet I don't mind being a little bit early on. And again, at 5,400, I don't mind this. I feel like that 15 to 20 point range with more upside is very realistic. And again, gives us, again, some good flexibility with the last 2 spots.
Yeah, only had no touchdowns last week. So again, we talked about.
He only has 1 touchdown all year, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised to see that change this week against a Jets team that's kind of spiraling.
Yeah, also at home, they were at home obviously on Thursday, but just the game script you would expect potentially favors him a little bit more than they did against Pittsburgh.
Yep, I would agree with you there.
All right, with that, 5,700 left per player. Where do you want to go? You want to do this wide receiver slot?
Yeah, I think we've got the salary here to lean into that Philly New York Giants game. And I think I'm okay with rostering wide receivers from either side. So let's go. They're pretty close in salary, AJ Brown or Devonta Smith. Let's just go Devonta Smith. Just he's a little bit cheaper, and see what that allows us. Still 5,500. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is really interesting this week. Continues to see the targets. Coming off 12 targets last week. 2 weeks ago when they played the Eagles, again, solid line, 684 and a touchdown for 20 points. I think that he's very much in play here. So let's throw him into the flex. Leaves us with 300 left. So I think from here I would either go up from the Patriots up to the Colts on D if I wanted to kind of lean into Jonathan Taylor and that correlation, in that correlation. Or I think on this build, let's just leave it as is and maybe go up to AJ Brown from Devonta Smith. Again, AJ Brown I think was limited in practice today, so just kind of a spot to monitor. He missed the practice. But again, I'm on pace to play on Sunday, so just one to monitor. I think that if he misses, Devonta Smith is going to be a super popular play in this game. But I kind of like where we landed here. We've got some good correlation. We've got some mini stacks outside of our primary build, and I think we've kind of accounted for the big home favorites outside of Atlanta. And I don't know that. Colts. I think it's a little bit of a challenge to build a Bijan, Jonathan Taylor roster.
It is.
I think people will do it, myself included, but I like where we landed here.
Pretty much have to punt at quarterback. Yes, absolutely. So the final lineup that we did land on, for those of you keeping track on the podcast, a Lamar Jackson skinny stack with Mark Andrews, and then the bring back of Roma Dunze in that Chicago-Baltimore game, and then Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown in the 2 running back slots, Dike, I don't even know how you say his first name, Chimere, Dike, AJ Brown, and Wan'Dale Robinson, that Giants Philly, and that's going to be a fun one to see the rematch of that. And that wraps up the build. Stat, any final thoughts, man, and Patriots defense, if I forgot to mention. Any final thoughts before we send this one off? Week 8 quickly approaching. Obviously, a lot of big decisions, but I like how we put this one together.
Yeah, kind of 1 week away from kind of the midpoint of the NFL season. So it's really flown by quick, but hoping to see more OWS pennants at tops of leaderboards. I know it's been a really strong start for the subscribers in general for our community, and hoping that continues again this week.
That's right, guys. Check out oneweekseason.com. You can get a lot more just of insight, strategy, podcasts, all that kind of stuff over there. Hey, Stat, this time next week, we'll be probably talking about Halloween costumes and all that kind of stuff. We're only a week away from Halloween. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, love that for us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, Stat, thanks for the time. OWS fam, or wherever you are consuming this content from, hope you guys have a good weekend. Good luck. Hope to see you guys at the top of the leaderboards, and we will catch you right here next week on the DFS Lab.